running a one-man business operation. Is that where you should start? Most of us do. But where do you go from there? Or should you go anywhere from there? I think you're going to find this one kind of interesting. Hey guys, Pete here, HVAC Greatness. I wanted to chat with you a little bit on that one-man operation, that one-man HVAC business. And for a lot of you, you're getting ready to take that step, or you've recently taken that step, and you're realizing it's not that easy, that there's a lot more than just the physical work. And it's true. Ultimately, what most of us want to do is to take and figure out how to scale our business, add employees, and ultimately work ourselves out of a job, right? That's the goal. And I think that we all should be focused on that for our long term, but I don't think we give enough focus on our short term, particularly given what we're facing right now in today's economy and in the transition, the transformation that's happening in the United States, in Canada, in the world for that matter, and how it's going to totally change the game. I know I'd get a lot of pushback from this. The traditional HVAC business model that they've been teaching for years, that I learned back when I was in business, when I was taking the business consulting, and I had coaches too that taught me how to run a successful HVAC business. I learned so much from them. I really value what I learned, and it's true. You find somebody who has achieved what you want to achieve, and you go do what they do, right? Well, hang on a minute. What happens if you are in a different situation? What happens if they're in a really up and coming market and you're not? Or what happens if they started theirs in a time when the economy was thriving and you're starting yours in a time when inflation is thriving, when recession is a reality, and when worse things are a possibility? I don't want to go too dark on this, but here's what I'm going to suggest. You definitely want to do your own business. I would suggest, if you are working for somebody else, don't get in a big rush. Learn everything that you possibly can. Absorb what you can. Now, once you've already started your business, doing heating and air conditioning is good, right? But the problem is other people do heating and air conditioning too. And so if you're doing heating and air and they're doing heating and air, your competition is doing heating and air, and your consumer's saying, you're all pretty much the same. This is the product everybody's offering. Here's the tonnage or the BTU or the SEER rating, whatever. This is the offering. Which one has the best price? And again, that's consumer minded. That's how consumers have learned to purchase. That's how they interact with merchants. Okay, so they do that because most products come off of an assembly line, if you will, and a lot of them come off the same assembly line, and they have different logos or brands that are put on there, and consumers have become hip to that. But what they haven't become hip to, and what they don't understand, is the value that you provide as a qualified expert who goes beyond, let's say, the traditional heating and air conditioning contractor who doesn't even do a load calculation. They remove the system, they put the same tonnage back, they try to approach the same CFM, and because if it worked before, it'll work again, right? Well, not really. There's a lot of things that have changed, but what I wanted to bring about was this. With what's coming, my advice to anybody who is, I would say, less than 10 employees, you really need to be looking at being a specialist. Especially if you're, two-man operation. If everybody else is heating and air, what can you get certified in that will go to another level? And I'm talking things that you just can't go in there and kind of figure out. You have to have actual training in order to understand how to work on this equipment. I mentioned to you guys before that I used to do commercial refrigeration that led me to work on supermarket refrigeration, and it was really cool. I learned a lot by working on those systems. I also worked on chillers. a little bit of centrifugal. I was too young to get off on my own at that time, but I was to be sent off to Syracuse, New York for carriers training. But I ended up leaving the company. And you know why I did it? I did it for $1 on the hour, right? Like so many young guys do. And, we all make the same mistakes. We're seeing that today. People are bouncing around. If you will take and listen to this advice, this literally can change the course of your life, giving the fact that what's coming is going to change the course of everybody's life. What we're going to see is we're going to see this economy do a change, and it's like nobody's ever seen before. And we're going to see people who don't have money anymore, but they have a heating and air conditioning system. They're looking for somebody to come in and take care of this. And we're going to see a lot of that. I saw a statistic just yesterday that said that repos, cars, have hit an all-time high of 20,000 repos per day. And they've never seen this before because people are electing not to make their car payment. Obviously, they're going to make their house payment first, but what comes after that? You see what I'm saying? So we can expect some difficult times, and we want to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. And while you see, my son sent me a video on Taco Bell hiring somebody to sit in there and make tacos or what have you for $15 an hour. And I think a team leader would make $17 an hour and things of this nature. And it was interesting that they still couldn't get enough workers. And they had an advertisement or one of those things on the window that says, sorry, the lobby's closed because we don't have insufficient staffing. And so while $17 an hour and $15 an hour is a whole lot to be stepping into an air conditioned job that you can just learn in a matter of a few days, Taco Bell would rather close their lobby than pay people any more than that. Now, that creates a whole nother strategy. We saw what happened with Bud Light with that type of advertising. It cost Anheuser-Busch billions of dollars. And we've seen this with other companies as these certain types of agendas are being promoted and pushed out there. And at the corporate level, they're doing it in spite of the fact that they know it's going to cost them billions, because in the big picture, it doesn't matter, because the future business model, distribution model is not going to look the same anymore. They're changing that. But we are essential services, and I want to focus on that. And while all those shiny things that today's younger generation are drawn to, I mean, why should they come work for you and climb in attics or under houses and cut their hands and work out in the heat or out in the cold when they can just sit indoors and make $20 an hour, sometimes much, much more, doing work that's a lot easier on the old body? Or they have their own dreams and aspirations, in which, it's nice to be encouraged of your dreams, that you can do anything and you can be anybody. But in reality, can you? I mean, think about, can you be anything or do anything? We like to think that we could, but then look at the person, somebody else that they say they can do anything, they can be anything. And you may look at it with a more judgmental eye, you know what I'm saying? But the reality of it is we have all these people that are pouring out into their dreams. They're going to be millionaires online, and they've learned how to use funnels and sell this and sell that. But if you don't have customers, if you don't have people who have discretionary income, you don't have sales. And that number is shrinking really quick. The amount of customers out there that are going to spend money on some of these different things are going to be reduced. Now, things like YouTube, for those channels that are monetized, they get commercials that are popping in. And I'm not monetized. I think I'm too small. And they just did a change, and I don't do that for the monetization. Okay. My customer base is guys like you or gals like you that are listening, and you want to better understand how to run your business, right? But the monetization, they've built entire businesses around doing a YouTube channel. Why? Because there are businesses that will pay for those time slots and advertise on YouTube. What happens when that changes? We may see that a big pullback on that. So a lot of things that we're seeing right now are in the midst of not a small change. And this is what I really need you to understand. Please, if you're not hearing this information, do your own research, but trust that Pete would never tell you anything that he doesn't absolutely believe in. Okay. That's just part of why I do what I do, is because the idea is to help other people, not to just make a quick buck. Okay. And, we all have to eat, we all have to charge, but it's really about helping others that ultimately lead to our own success, right? Because when you make your mark in the world, your customers need to be saying good things about you, not, you ripped me off for, putting that system in for $5,000 more than the other company. And I only found out after I'd already put it in, these stories. Nobody likes that. And because the homeowners are unsophisticated on service type businesses, they assume that if one company charges more than another, it's because they're ripping them off, and they don't consider the possibility that lower priced person doesn't understand how to price their products and services right, and they're actually losing money, and they won't even be here to stand behind what they installed one day. These are all the different things that are going on. Okay, so we have this younger generation. They're chasing the shiny objects, and in the meantime, they're losing time to work with somebody like you, to learn a skill and to work with their hands. And I'm going to suggest to you that while there'll always be all this other type of work out there, the real opportunity as jobs start to dry up are going to be with those people who work with their hands, and they can do things that technology can't. And it can be electrical work, mechanical work. It can be growing your own food. It can be understand how to be a handyman around your own house, and maybe how to fish and hunt, and a lot of stuff like canning foods and all these things that we've lost, right? My grandparents knew how to do this, but I'm 59. Your grandparents, which, would be like my parents' level, most of you, they lost most of that, right? And by the time you get to my generation, we've definitely lost it. We know how to fish and hunt and do a lot of the basics, but other than basic gardening, we're very limited. It's not like the old timers because things change. We're going to get a bounce backwards, and we're going to see a lot more of that in terms of value. Why am I saying all that? It's because what you do is going to have tremendous value. Now, out of necessity, homeowners, equipment owners are going to have to learn how to do certain things themselves. And if they want to work on their home comfort system, they want to know how to change a filter. Well, that's easy. Just go to YouTube and it'll tell you which way the arrow needs to point. What if they want to learn how to check a system and see if it has a defective contactor or a capacitor, or if it's low of refrigerant? I was watching a YouTube video of a do-it-yourself guy that has his own channel, and he did all the homework, and he put in a ductless system. And he went in, he trimmed the extra tubing line set, and he bought a flaring tool. He flared it. He bought a vacuum pump. He pulled a vacuum. He bought a set of gauges. He followed all these instructions, and he did a good job. I was watching, and not because he was a heating and air guy, but because he was mechanically inclined. He was electrically inclined. He understood the fundamentals of how stuff worked, and he took that approach in everything. So the stuff that he did around his own house was tremendous. And this is going to bring this out of a number of people. So a lot of people, as times get tough, are either going to do it themselves, or they'll have a neighbor who does theirs themselves, and they'll work for a fraction of what you'll work for, and they'll just come right over to their neighbor's house and take care of it, but so they don't have to call you. You see what I'm saying? So while being a one-man operation is a struggle, I think that you're in a unique position if you take that training and get some type of certification, as I mentioned, that goes to another level. And IAQ certification is one of the first ones that comes to mind. But what if the community out there, the economy says, you know what, our budget's a little tight. We're really not concerned with improving the air quality right now. We'll deal with what we've got. Our priority right now is to just get some heat or to just get some cooling. And so that shifts, right? So they may not be interested in that, but there are things that they will be interested in. And that's why I'm saying, if you're currently a one-man operation or soon to be a one-man operation, if you can take your skill set to another level, that if you do not, you're going to have not only the existing competition, but handyman type of competition coming in saying, I do that too. And this requires, it requires doing that extra work, studying in the evenings, maybe going to specialized classes. Look at technologies, for example, like these variable refrigerant systems that use multiple heads on these ductless systems and VFR, all this stuff. These types of technologies, your handyman, if he gets in there, he might just mess it up, right? So learning these types, going to these types of levels are really good. I know Mitsubishi is really strong, and they have they really like their, I think they call them diamond dealers. They really like their specialized dealers that are well trained, and they'll feed them work. I'm not saying that that's the one for you, but I will say this, that the hospital is not going to allow some handyman to come work on their chiller system or their boilers, right? The grocery stores are not going to allow you to come work on advanced refrigeration systems unless you've already got some kind of experience and you've got some history there, right? So going to that next level and being a little bit more specialized can only help you. And I'm just suggesting this as a possible route for some of you guys to take, but you definitely have to set yourself apart, even if it's not through a specialty, through marketing and things of this nature. Your approach to service, maybe it's the systems that you use and whatnot, so that the consumer can see you as worth more, not the same as everybody else. Before you're worth more, you have to be different, right? But you can't be so different that you alienate yourself from your customers. You have to be relatable. So there's a balance, and that's all this stuff that I take my customers through, and we work together and we determine that, and we present what we call your ultimate customer offer. And this is designed to draw a certain type of customer, and this is what you'll want to do. So the most important advertising and marketing decision that you're going to make is your initial offer. And that includes your visual identity, your brand, all that stuff. So most people let somebody else do that. They come up with a logo that looks really cool, and even a professional advertising company that puts together a visual image that's very powerful. But I'm suggesting to you that we're coming into times where customers are going to look at that as probably a negative, right? This is a big company. They got these big fancy vans, and I really don't want to be paying for that. I want to find a good, small company who's obviously successful. They're not driving beat up trucks. They're not starving, but they're not going to overcharge me like these others. I'm looking for a leaner solution. And unless you're going to be one of the bigger companies, and, kudos to them, they're going to be able to draw the big talent and everything else. Your ability to do the work yourself and have, one or two key people that don't get pulled away and take the $5,000 sign-on bonus bribe that they give these new techs, or they may give, and you may find yourself in a position where you can do this. You can be that. Now, regardless of where this ends up, you're going to have to get lean. You're going to have to get lean. And if I ask you, do you know how to price your services? Most of you say, yeah, I use the method that somebody told me. But my question, if I reworded that, do you know your financials, what your overhead is, what your personal expenses require of your company, what the overhead entails in order to operate fully at capacity? So, with all of the expenses, I mean, everything, not just your trucks, but all the office support, your software, computers, desks, the electric bill, internet, cell phone services, and on and on. Do you know how to go through your numbers and then look at your field labor and the services that you offer? And do you know how to come up with a good price point for each of those, so that you know somewhere in the realm of at least where your break even is? And by break even means if I sold 1 penny less than this price, it's going to cost me money. If I sell 1 penny above that, I make a penny profit, right? But you know what I'm saying? So when you understand your break even, it allows you some leeway. And this goes into my current philosophy on pricing. And I've been through dual overhead, and I understand you mark up your parts at one thing and your labor at another. I'm suggesting that when we move forward, you're going to want to move over towards a little bit different. Marking up of the parts is nice, but if you understand your direct costs and you understand your overhead and can appropriate that based on the work that you're doing correctly, now we have a very lean number. No matter what the equipment costs, no matter how, what the labor is and everything else, this really dials you in, because if you think about it, you don't sell stuff online, or maybe if you do, that's different. But everything that you sell has your physical manual labor connected to its installation. You sell products that are installed. You sell parts that are installed. You don't sell stuff and send it, across the state or across the country to somebody else for them to install. Not yet. And if you do, it's just a matter of time before somebody's going to undercut you and they buy cheaper and everything else. So what we want to do is really get dialed in on what your overhead, your direct costs are by the man hour or by the crew hour. And when we get dialed in on that, then we know exactly how to figure our costs. Now, that does require us to do a little bit of departmentalization, well, a lot actually, breaking everything up by department so that we know how much overhead to assign to each of these departments and so on. And it will vary, but I'm thinking that's going to change. I'm certain that even that's going to change, because what's going to happen is you're going to go from most of your overhead being paid by replacements to replacement sales start to dry up. People just want to fix it, so the repair sales go up. Replacements going down, services going up, and the overhead, if we had a greater percentage assigned to replacements and less over on service, you're doing more service, you're doing more work, but you're making less money and you're not getting the bills paid because you didn't have that factored in. So we have to start skewing those, moving that overhead over. But here comes the problem. People spend money based on perceived value. And when you look at a brand new heating and air conditioning system for $20,000, the value, this is based on an assumption by the customers is, well, that must be worth $20,000. Look at all this brand new stuff. But you do a repair and you've got it attached to a component like a capacitor, and you're wanting to charge $300, $400, $500. They're looking at you like $300, $400, $500 for a capacitor. I looked that up on Amazon, and that thing costs $15 or $20. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a perceived value. So what we have to do is we have to know our actual cost to do a repair, and not price just on that. That's a little shift of your thinking, right? If you try to charge something based on what it costs you, it makes sense to you, but the customers don't care. I don't care what it costs you. I'm not paying you $400 to put in a capacitor, right? So this requires a different approach. And so what we have to do is sell based on value and skew our prices based on value. That said, what we used to do as a loss leader on maintenance agreements, and maybe you still want to do that, maybe that's part of your strategy, I don't know. I think that's going to have to go back to at least covering your costs, I suggest. And it really depends on how far this thing goes. But know this: if you're a one-man operation, don't freak out with us coming. You're actually in a very powerful position. So what you're going to want to do is this. You're going to want to get specialized if you can. Find something that you can do that you had to go to special training and you had to learn special procedures and maybe even buy special tools in order to perform this, so that any other heating and air conditioning company in your area, if they tried to do it, they couldn't, not until they went through that training. And obviously, the more advanced and difficult the training, or more expensive the tools, the more difficult it is for you to get competition. That's why, as long as there's a demand for what you're doing, that's why things like geothermal heat pump systems with this big equipment that we have to go down into the earth and create a space to bury all the water loops and whatnot underground, or into the local lake, or what have you. Most of your small contractors, they can't afford to get into that. They can't afford it, right? So if you already got a head start on that, and there's still a demand, because there's always people that are that upper, that they can afford more. And so I think there's always going to be a high demand. So your ability to understand your numbers, really get dialed in, get lean, so you're spending less money, find a specialty that nobody else can do, therefore you can charge more and charge more. That gap, spending less and charging more, is your insurance going forward. Now you want to take that money and not stick it in the bank, because the dollar, you got to have cash flow, but the dollar is losing value every day. It needs to immediately be reinvested into something that's going to last. Now, I've alluded to this on other videos, but what I'm talking to you about, in my opinion, in this humble, 41-year-old industry opinion, this is life and death. This is survival. I think, and I don't know how well this is going to age, because we've been seeing this thing come for so long that it just seems like it's never going to get here. But I'm recording this at the very end of June 2023, almost July. Let's see how well this ages. Let's see look at your books, what you're selling right now in terms of service and repair. Let's see what this looks like 12 months from now, 24 months from now. There's some external influences that are coming. Everybody's going to get affected. It's not going to get pretty. And so you're going to have to do more for more people. You've got to take care of your family, but you can't say no to people in need, right? There, you have friends, you have extended family, you have employees. So getting yourself in a position now, reducing those costs, getting lean, and raising your value so that you can make more money, and implementing a strategy that's successful is going to put you in a better position to be successful. Now, the other thing is your ability to communicate that value. And like I alluded to earlier, your biggest decision, your most important decision when it comes to your business, is your marketing message. And that's combined with visual. It's built around your customer. It's built around them. What makes them tick? What are they drawn to? Your best customers, not just anybody with heating and air. And if you're getting bad customers, it's because you don't have this stuff worked out. If you're saying people in my market won't pay X amount of prices, because you're attracting the wrong customers, not because you're a bad person, it's because your marketing isn't the way it should be. And the marketing agencies don't tell you this. They don't even understand this. All they want to do is get you a lead, no matter how bad it is, and charge you for that lead. Their job is done. And all of us have gotten the advertisement of, let me give you, extra 20 to 30 leads per week. But whatever, guys, they're following a model. And I learned that model years ago. And I even tried that for a while, right? But I wasn't doing the advertising agencies, but that whole marketing communication. And things have gotten sophisticated. And now with AI, I've already tapped into one resource that is pretty powerful. It goes through and gives you the best possible marketing messages to your customer avatar, and it's doing that for other industries. We just haven't seen it hit ours yet. And so it pretty much can write up your advertising. You can go on Chat GPT right now and go put stuff in there, and people think that's good enough. It is not. We're just scratching the surface of what this thing's going to do. But fundamentally, what it's going to do is Try to create a way of communicating what I've been telling you for years. It's about your greatness. It's about your ability. It's about the ability for people to perceive how great you are. You're not just a heating and air. You're better. You're great. This is why they ought to do business with you. Okay. But fundamentally, there's all these tricks and hacks and things like this. But fundamentally, if you want to be perceived as the best, do the best work. Give your best effort. Hire the best people you can. Use the best products and materials that you can. That's what it takes. Everybody's trying to figure out a way to make people think that they're the best, and it works. We see a lot of these big companies that are still doing the hustle tactics. They're still getting big bucks, but it's starting to slip, right? People are starting to turn away from this kind of stuff. They're starting to get tired of these maintenance visit hustles. Every time the maintenance guy comes out here, he's trying to sell me something else. Guys, we need integrity. We need to be consultants as much as technicians, and we need to build everything on integrity, honesty, good communication, professionalism. And that's not going to be for everybody. In fact, most are going to struggle with this, but your competition is going to scratch their head. They're not going to know what you're doing and how you're doing this and how you keep getting this following. But you can do it. But you do have to have the strategy, and you do have to follow it. P. Ramsey here, HVAC Greatness. You one-man operation out there, you go get them. You're our future. You're our hope. And we need you. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.